Hello, everyone. I am here with a true story. I hope you guys are having a good day. I miss it, anyways. Good night. It's after 9 o'clock. This story is by Greg Stranigan, and it is called My Shortest Prayer. Several years ago, I experienced a health crisis. I woke up one morning and every muscle ached. My arms, legs, back. I was stiff and sore all over. The next day was worse. If you've ever had a Charlie horse, yes, you have an idea of what it feels like. Only it was non-stop. It was painful to move. Getting out of bed was an ordeal. My wife's love language is hiking, and I live a pretty active lifestyle, no more. I discovered that when a person experiences neuromuscular issues, he gets the attention of the medical community in a hurry. The neurologist didn't waste any time running tests. She pulled out a needle, a long needle, and stuck it into my right quadriceps. She said, "Try to lift your leg while I press down against it." "Okay," I said, and dutifully obeyed. "You've got a high threshold of pain," she noted. Honestly, it didn't feel any worse than my normal. I pointed that fact out to her. Her diagnosis didn't explain the origin of my symptoms. The best guess was multiple sclerosis, Lyme disease, or ALS. At this point, my wife started praying. Psalm 41, love that psalm, 1 through 3 for me. "Blessed are those who have regard for the weak. The Lord delivers them in times of trouble. The Lord protects and preserves them. They are counted among the blessed in the land. He does not give them over to the desire of their foes. The Lord sustains them on their sickbed and restores them from their bed of illness." Soon afterward, I met with a neurosurgeon who was confident and self-assured. "You've got cervical stenosis, and I can fix it," he announced. Apparently, arthritic buildup of calcium was pinching my spinal cord and all the vertebrae in my neck. Instead of being smooth, the spinal cord looked like a Tootsie Roll compressed into segments. "I can't go in through the front of the neck," he said. "It's more precise, but it fuses where the vertebrae touches together. All of your vertebrae are involved, and you'd have no range of motion to turn your head. I'll go in through the back and perform a cervical laminectomy. It will clean out the arthritis." Sherm had that done in his shoulder. I knew that he was going on vacation to Hawaii in 2 days, so I figured surgery would be scheduled when he got back home. He threw me for a loop when he said, "We're going to operate tomorrow." Why the rush, I wanted to know. You have no protection in your neck. If you were to fall down, you could be paralyzed. I wouldn't risk it. "I'll clear my calendar if you clear yours," he said. After a neurosurgery that lasted almost 5 hours, I awoke and felt great. The muscle pain was so much better, and I got released from the hospital the same day. Before I left, the neurosurgeon said, "You don't need a cervical collar or a neck brace, because I went in through the back and those items wouldn't do any good. Just don't do any heavy lifting or kickboxing." I told Sherm the same thing. Well, not the kickboxing, but no heavy lifting. It was like I was given a new life. I felt so good. To celebrate, my lovely wife, Shawn, took me out of town on a getaway to spend the night in a historic hotel. On the way, we hiked several trails to see waterfalls. Oh, you're pushing it again. At the hotel, we checked into our room, and I put our luggage up 3 levels to the top floor. After dinner, we went back to the room. My neck began to tighten up. "So you're doing too much." Maybe it's from all the exercise, I thought. I started having intense muscle spasms. You're doing heavy lifting, see? I couldn't find a position that provided relief. I walked to a wing chair and sat down. I felt like I ripped a stitch, I told my wife. She checked the stitches on the back of my neck and they were intact. What I didn't know, but had felt, was the muscle spasms had ripped an interior stitch because you was lifting all that luggage and stuff. Something didn't feel quite right. I tried moving my right hand and it didn't move. I tried moving my right leg and it wouldn't move. I can't move my right hand and my right leg. I think I'm having a stroke, I told Sean. Oh, come on now. I'm calling 911. She sounded calm, but I knew she must be frantic. I'm frantic and it's freaking me out. That's a good idea, I agreed. While she was on the phone, I tried moving my left leg. It wouldn't move either. I realized that it probably wasn't a stroke. No, it's not. Finally, I tried moving my left hand. It too remained motionless. Come on, you did this to yourself by lifting all that luggage. The experience was surreal. I tried bearing down and concentrating, and I focused all of my attention on willing my legs and my arms to respond. Nothing. No pain, no sensation whatsoever. It was becoming increasingly difficult to breathe. Oh my God. I've been an ambulance driver, and I realized that my life was slipping away. I was dying. I felt bad for my poor wife, but I was okay with the prospect of meeting Jesus sooner rather than later. My thought was, if I'm going to die, it's going to be with praises on my lips. So I started singing praise and worship songs softly to myself. It's got a good outlook. Soon after that, paramedics burst into the room. They took my vitals and gave me oxygen. It made breathing easier, and I figured that I might survive. But my thought was that I'd rather be with the Lord in heaven. He's ready, isn't he? Ain't scared at all. That's a good thing. The paramedics strapped me to a backboard and tied my head down really tight. It was the only thing I could actually feel. The elevator was antique. Oh, I hate those. And wasn't big enough to fit the stretcher. The emergency personnel carried me down 3 flights of stairs, loaded me into the ambulance, and drove to a local urgent care center. You need that neurosurgeon. I found myself in a waiting room at the hospital. It sounded like there was a room full of people, but I couldn't move my head to see. I squinted at the fluorescent lights, which weren't helping my headache, and then I heard the voice of God. It wasn't loud or overwhelming, just a small voice that asked, "Why haven't you prayed for yourself?" Good question, I thought. My prayer was as short as it was desperate. "Help me, Lord," I whispered under my breath, and God, in his own unique way, acted on my behalf. I hadn't had feeling in my fingers for several months, but suddenly I could feel the fingers on my left hand. I tried moving my left arm, and to my amazement, it moved. It wasn't strapped down, so I began to wave it around and proclaim triumphantly to anyone who was there to listen, "I can move my left arm, check it out." Next, the left leg, same thing, I could feel it. I wriggled my toes. Right leg, right arm, the paralysis left in the reverse order, and it came. As it came, each time I tried moving a body part, I succeeded, and I let everyone in the ER know it. I was in the process of being prepped for a life flight helicopter to the city where we lived, about 60 miles away, but a check of my vitals showed that they had stabilized. So instead, I was whisked by ambulance to the local hospital. We arrived in the parking lot about midnight. Several friends were there waiting. They took Sean under their wing. One woman, the wife of the general practitioner, told Sean, "I believe Greg is going to be okay. God gave me this scripture." And she proceeded to read Psalm 41, 1 through 3, the exact same one Sean had prayed for me during my initial diagnosis. I was glad to see my neurosurgeon when he walked into the hospital room. He'd been there for the surgery. He'd know what the problem was and what needed to be done. An MRI revealed a hematoma blood clot, more than 7 centimeters in diameter, pressing on my spinal cord. Bleeding into the spinal cord is a worst-case medical scenario, but it explained the symptoms: paralysis, inability to breathe, vital signs shutting down. The doctor performed emergency surgery, evacuated the blood clot, and sutured the broken blood vessel. After another 4-hour-plus surgery, I left the hospital grateful to be alive, but unaware of how extraordinary it was to be mobile. At the doctor's office the following day, he explained, "You should either be dead or paralyzed. People just don't come back from something like that," he added. "The big guy must not be done with you, God." Sean asked, "How did Greg get motion when he was at urgent care?" "It was the steroids he was given," the doctor surmised. "He wasn't given anything in the ER," my lovely bride noted. "Well, that's another miracle," the doctor concluded. "I don't pretend to understand prayer, healing, and the ways of God. Prayer isn't magic. It's not a formula. There is so much I don't know about prayer. It's a mystery. But one thing I know is this. Prayer can bring an extra dose of grace of God. Even more than that, it expresses our dependence on Him. If the essence of sin is living independently of God, prayer is the opposite of that. The shortest and most effective prayer I've ever prayed was simply, "Help me, Lord." Blessed are those who have regard for the weak. The Lord delivers them in times of trouble. The Lord protects and preserves them. They are counted among the blessed in the land. He does not give them over to the desire of their foes. The Lord sustains them on their sick bed and restores them from their bed of illness. Psalm 41, 1, 2, and 3. Good night, everyone, and stay safe.